And good morning again, back on Friday, January 16th in House Transportation. There is a section here on cycling, safety education, outreach, signage deployment. We had some pieces and maybe we could put some background on that from last year's e-bill. And there's the whole 4-foot rule and a lot of other things that we'll probably hear a bit more about. And what we're looking for as a request of members of the committee, some updates on sort of where we're at in bike safety education, the changes in the law, and what we're doing about education in that area. So we appreciate that you're in today. So Amanda, if you're ready, that's the background of why this particular section is a committee request. So thank you very much for coming in.
Thank you, Chair, for inviting us to come and speak and give an update to the committee on the safety and outreach activities that are going on. I am Amanda Holland with the Agency of Transportation, and with the Safe Systems section, you heard Jesse Devlin speak earlier this week, and the Active Transportation Unit is one of 2 staff in that group. I'm going to talk today about the vulnerable road user safety education in general, and then I will address I have 2 slides on the 4-foot passing rule. How to do this with my, there we go. So to build off of what you've probably seen from other agency staff, the safe systems approach, as it was presented by my colleagues, offers redundancies in or requires redundancies in the approach. Our safety culture through education is our agency strategy, supported both in the strategic highway safety plan and the bicycle and pedestrian strategic plan. And just put this in there just as a refresher for when we're talking about the vulnerable road user. It is defined as all of these points in statute. In terms of our programming and active transportation, we are focusing on the pedestrian, operation wheelchair and mobility device, bicycle and other non-motorized, and motor assisted bicycle or electric bicycle. So we institute laws to establish clear rights and responsibilities for each roadway user. These are just some examples of some of those rules that we have for each of our different types of users, for motor vehicles, bicyclists, and pedestrians. And to have a safe roadway system, we need to know how to use the system and have a shared responsibility for following it. So that's how we function out there. And under a safe systems approach, again, responsibility is shared by many. And so for this to be successful, both the government and service providers and advocates play a role to ensure safe roads, and we partner to achieve our goals. And by having this partnership, this network, these are all people that we work with to do safety education. It really allows us to have an extensive outreach for how we're reaching constituents. I mean, we're the state agency, we can put out specific information that kind of goes broadly, but these other constituents can reach, older adults, protecting AARP. We have students for going after schools, driving, people that are just doing cycling, and even transit riders. So it really broadens our network of who we can reach. And how we do safety education, just overall, it does happen in a variety of ways. This is just showing an example of things that we've done in the past. So we have, print in, I'm looking at my notes, so I can stay on task. We utilize many different approaches. So we have media that summarize roads of the laws and road rules, which is what you'll see to the far left with some of those print materials. Those we have not been updated in recent years, but that's one thing we are looking at, seeing how they might need to be refreshed. Both the Agency of Transportation and partners have done some videos to talk about how-to videos. How do you travel? How do you interact with other users? There's different events that are done, like bike rodeos, school presentations, which are done both by advocate groups and by law enforcement and the schools themselves through the Vermont Principals Association, and social media campaigns to remind folks of safe practices to follow. And so I'll just share some examples and give an overview of some of those specific efforts by partners recently. The first one I'll start with is more of a broad all road users safety education. And all of these efforts that I'll highlight are efforts that were funded through the State Highway Safety Office and the federal funding. And so this one is an effort from the State Highway Safety Office within the agency for Share the Road. We've already had an established drive well campaign that's a multi-year campaign. And this past year, they developed this new material and campaign for Share the Road. And this campaign is focused itself at drivers. That's the audience that they're trying to reach, but it is making them aware of all of the types of users you might interact with on the road. And the reminder of, and one of the slogans or taglines, if you will, in all of them is, make sure you slow down, move over, and share the road. So that's an example of one type of outreach. And it was shared, I believe, by Allison, that this material is also available as a toolkit on our agency's website for other partners to use. This slide shows an example of our partnership with the Vermont Department of Health and their injury prevention group. And we've partnered with them to create an additional campaign to target the general public on things such as Be Bright at Night and visibility. A lot of their material does focus on the pedestrian group, so reminders for how pedestrians can travel more safely. And they do events as well. One of those events is partnering with the Medical Reserve Corps and having an event and handing out reflectors to participants. Another one of our partners who you've just heard about from Locomotion is supported through the State Highway Safety Office, and they've had various types of programming that they've offered this year. As they talked about, the 2 complementary programs that they're offering to school-age children is to target Walk Smart and Bike Smart to give them those skills they need to be confident and safe while they're traveling around the country. And just to highlight, so the State Highway Safety Office partnerships, they do partner with a lot of different, or we have a lot of different segments to those grants. So there are some that are material that's specific to vulnerable road users, and there's some that fall under different buckets. And this is highlighting some of those other buckets that of partners that get funding, but they do have components of bike ped, bicycle and pedestrian safety education. So just to highlight a couple, the Rutland School District receives funding for driver simulators for use by students to learn about distracted driving in high school. The Randolph Police Department educates motorists on the rules of the road and consequences of violating traffic laws. They also do bike rodeos and use operation of safety gear. So how do you use a helmet? The Vermont Principals Association has received funding to also educate young drivers. And then the town of Milton and their police department have received funding in multiple years doing bike rodeos and raising awareness of school zones. So that's the lower picture there. So, these are efforts that are overall highlighting those walking and biking travel. And I just want to highlight the things I didn't talk about, but that are related, is all the safety education and outreach that's done related to distracted driving, speeding, and impaired driving. And those efforts also have a corresponding impact on bicycle and pedestrian safety on the road. One other piece I will highlight in terms of safety education is Safe Routes to School programming. this program, the goal is to make walking, biking, rolling to school safer and more appealing, but it's also has an aim to instill that knowledge in students and the youth of traffic safety laws and skills to encourage being safe on the road and also taking a different type of mode to travel. And let me make sure. One update to share from last spring, the statewide point of contact for this program did transition back to the Agency of Transportation. We've been using the locomotion, has been serving as a point of contact for the past, I don't know, from 2017 to 2024, but tied to both funding and then an opportunity to gain efficiencies. We brought that back to the agency and allowing partners to focus more on the programming. So I'm just highlighting that in our next steps that we are reorganizing the statewide delivery service. And again, to give a sense of what that is, it's just, I'm meaning like we have a website and there's one person that you might reach out to say, I need help on this, what do I go to next? And so it might be telling that person, there's this resource on our website, or you could reach out to one of our partners, the Regional Planning Commission, Locomotion, or the Health Department. So it's kind of making that first contact with someone and helping them find who can deliver the service or answer questions they're looking for. And so we are in the process of figuring out or reorganizing what that system looks like and how can we create a framework that is easy for us to be sharing information with our partners, such as even maintaining a school contact database, and how do you stay current and relevant. And so we are doing that in coordination with our partners. And to pivot and convey the status of efforts specific to the 4-foot passing law. When that did go into effect, some of the messaging that did go out by ourselves and partners was shown. So one of the things we did was just to put it out there in social media and in a press release or what have you, just that this is now a law, and conveying what the change in law was. For instance, in that middle graphic, the Vermont Health Department had already developed materials because they had already been messaging about the law with it being a recommendation. And that's been something that's been pushed since that law was changed. And so that was an easy way for them just to be able to tweak that language. But again, this is something where from those original statutes that, created for transportation, there has been safe passing. It was due care. And then we strengthened it for recommendation. And now we've made it more of a priority with required. Now to talk about this next piece, the change of this law going from recommendation to required allows for the installation of an official traffic sign. Realized I didn't include it on this picture, but you would have seen it 2 slides ago on the one with or this 1 slide ago on Locomotion's image. And this sign is available to put on local and state highways. And again, we'll go over in terms of what has happened since the law passing. The agency, when this came out with the MUTCD, the agency, our first priority was to go through all of our existing standards to ensure that we are in alignment with that. And as we were doing that review, we were able to see an immediate course of action for the use of this sign and putting it into our engineering instructions for border crossings. So right now, when you cross the border on state highways, there are crossings that let you know, what are the changes of law because you've changed jurisdiction. So there will be, no drinking and driving, seatbelts are required, no handheld devices. So this will be another sign that will accompany that package so that anyone coming in understands Vermont's rules. In terms of next steps, so I put on here, effective June of 2025 is when that engineering instruction is effective. So that means that in terms of moving forward, when we go to do projects at those locations or need to update signs due to asset condition, that those will be installed at that time. And we are in the process of, the active transportation team and the traffic operations team is reviewing, trying to determine how to develop consistent criteria for use of this sign elsewhere. So one of the things that's important is this is an informational sign that has a use case, but we need to determine how we're going to make that decision statewide. So is it on what kind of criteria? Is it a high use corridor? Is it related to shoulder width? Like what are some of the criteria so that we can consistently make those decisions? And again, we're looking at what kind of criteria would be applicable for state highways. The use by municipalities. Municipalities would then be able to look at that criteria and adapt it as is applicable. I know we have had some municipalities reach out to us, and they're also trying to determine how they could use this sign on their roads. And so I think there are some municipalities that are also trying to determine what's the best use case.
I'm sorry, on that slide, is there such a thing as a map or a key that the state has that they would consider they mapped out high bicycle use state highways? Or is it sort of a general kind of idea, or is it really an understood area that we think is more mapped out of the higher use bicycle areas? Just looking at that last term, high bicycle use state highways, is there such a map?
We do have a map from the year wrong. We have the 2016, I should say, we do have a use that's like the state highway. For state highways, we have a prioritization of corridors for high use to lower use. I really should have been more on the ball with that response, but we do, that is currently what we do use for some of our project prioritization. We are looking at, in the future, needing to find ways that we could update that map, because that was done as part of a larger project, had a lot of community input to identify if we were to, when we're focusing our efforts for improvement, what are the high priority corridors that we should be looking at. So that would be one factor here.
Yeah, when do you anticipate signs will be available? I know my town is very interested in installing them on our town roads. We have some pretty well-used bike corridors in summer.
Sure. Well, municipalities, as of with the update of the MUTCD, which was, I think, December 2023. Municipalities are able to put these signs up on their road.
Oh, okay. I think that's well understood or appreciated that they can do that.
Yeah, municipalities follow the same standards as the state in terms of the MUTCD. So with it coming out, just like they can, put up a bicycle box or a bike lane and sign for that, as long as it's an approved sign for the roadway. So yeah, they are able to purchase and install signs on local roads. It's more the state roads where we are determining criteria.
So I could inform my town manager, for example, that they can just go into whatever the MUTCD sign store is and get some signs, but for passing signs, and just put those up. Is there, and they would follow the guidance in the MUTCD about placement, things like that.
Correct. I have learned that there are a lot of nuances to placing it, so spacing and all the other signs, but yeah, it's all, they would be following, the provisions as laid out in the METCD.
Presumably they're, I mean, they do this all the time for other purposes. Great, great, thank you.
Representative Burke?
So for state highways, when, like, how soon do you anticipate that those the high use state highways, how soon do you think things can be put up?
I don't have, a specific answer to that. I know that it's something we're working on right now. I know that we are coordinating with other states to understand some of their criteria for this sign, or this provision has been there since 2024. So many states are in a similar process of trying to identify criteria. Some states that have developed some guidance has really just had some more general things, more like context of the high priority, but we're trying to find some other criteria to be a little more nuanced so we can be consistent with our approach.
And the having bicycles asking, what are you gonna do a 4-foot bicycle? So, well, you've actually done it. The people are not necessarily aware.
Yeah, it's a good.
Representative McCoy and then White and then Pouch.
So do you know if we have installed any of these 4-foot bicycle passing clearance signs at any of the entrances to our state?
We have not yet installed and
Have we had them manufactured or printed or whatever the word verbiage is?
right. So at this time, and again, we made this official in the effective, I should say, as of June 2025. So just this past June. And at present, our intent is to do that when there's a project. So we're not taking action to go out and just put up one sign, just because that then is puts a little bit more of a project of them needing to determine how you place it and movement of signs. So at present, the intent is to release them when a project is identified for those areas, and I don't have the schedule of when they might
Well,
happen.
because my sense is the 4-foot bicycle passing clearance sign, I'm talking about the entrances to our state, not if you're doing work on interior in the state of Vermont, but I mean, for instance, I have Route 31 that heads into Granville, New York, and there are others, we have the other signs posted there. But it's probably going to be a lot of years before you do any work on Route 31 heading to Granville. So that's what, do you have a sense of just the entrance ones into the state?
Right, and so I guess I should,
If you can get back to us and just,
Yeah.
is there a schedule?
right, and I can be clear, there are sometimes, like, it doesn't necessarily need to be a highway project, it's just a
Yes.
project that includes
Correct.
signage for those. So yeah, I can get
Okay.
back to you.
Great, thank you.
Representative White?
Yeah, thank you, Amanda. So I too, like Representative Lally, have a community that is desperate for bike signs and we're grateful to have you join us this fall to get a sense of the biking enthusiasm and kind of the wish list there. And I'm not particularly familiar with the MUTCD, but I'm just kind of looking on the website now and seeing few bike signs, but nothing about 4-foot, which is what I guess we're really looking for, the 4-foot and also the share the road. So maybe after this session, you can help me locate that, because I think we are really eager to get some ordered and put up.
Yeah, and I can follow up with because there have been some with the changes to provisions. So I put up here, that's the sign, if you will, that would be up there, because it could be 3 feet or 4 feet, because some states do have 3 feet. So that would be the one sign. And I I believe, I will get back to you, but I believe that with this going in, it has in some instances replaced, or it's not as recommended to use the share the road sign, so I'll have to clarify that.
Recommended to use?
Well, yeah, like this has been, some changes of preferring one over the other, so I need to, double check that myself, but I can include that when I get back.
Okay. And I would just comment that I think that we may be indicative of kind of a more statewide, I'm not sure how many municipalities know that these are available. I don't know if there's a messaging opportunity to reach out to municipalities to let them know that the signage is available and how to access that.
And no, that's a good one. Thank you.
Thank you.
Representative Pop?
Yeah, hi, thanks, Amanda. And I think we talked about this, maybe at the event we went to together, and, I'll say, I'm disappointed. After we passed this law, I've been hypersensitive, looking for anything that comes from the state on the education and outreach. And I saw one Facebook post, and it's the one we saw a picture here. It shows somebody on a wheelchair and, share the road, and that's a good one. But I really had high expectations that we would see more. I spoke to, some of the advocates, and they really didn't see anything coming their way. It sounds like now there's been a change where the advocates aren't embedded in the program that as much as they were. So I'd like to know more about that. How much grant work, how much money is given to the advocates to do the education and outreach? Because I'm not sure the state's at this point really doing what was expected, what was hoped for. Signage is good. But the education piece, I think, is critical. And, you gotta have that education piece, and then the signage reminds people or informs people coming into the state. So I'm less about, signs are important to reinforce what people have been educated for. So I just say it just disappointing.
To get a response to you, can I finish my last couple of slides? Because I think the last one will at least get the ball rolling on that piece. I included these two slides in here because they are conveying. So these are the next two slides are from the 2021 Bicycle and Pedestrian Strategic Plan and our specific objective talking about education. And this is just giving some examples of at that time, this plan was put together with a lot of stakeholder input, law enforcement, advocates, DMV. And so these were things that maybe they need to be tweaked after a couple of years, but they identify things like develop a plan for safety education, identify efforts and their implementation. So to your point, to date, we have a lot of partners that are doing great things, but part of our role of our team is how we can help those connect the dots. And are there ways where we could also be able to pivot? And a lot of our state highway safety office, the grant is putting out there, and our partners are proposing things that they've identified as needs. And we're not necessarily directing those in telling them what we could use. So for instance, this 4-foot rule, when we put that out there, we don't necessarily say we need someone to do that education piece at this time. And so I'll just skip to this last page of, just conveying the current and ongoing tasks of our unit. One of the things, we are trying to strengthen the communication and collaboration with partners. That's an ongoing task. Be initiating a coordinated plan for safety education, kind of terming it to like, communications plan, because in some aspects we have a lot going on, but it is hard to to see where we might have gaps missing and to identify what partners would best address those gaps and assess like targeted campaigns, whether it be the agency, puts in for a proposal the next grant round or a partner. And then on the bottom, it's more related to training of the practitioners, but that also can be important. Just an update of, this past year, we conducted 7 trainings for municipalities on Fleet Street. So that's more implement or facility side, but it's also another way to be getting education out there. So I guess to answer your question, we do have we are working with our partners, and especially with another good new face that's come in is the Vermont Highway Safety Alliance has a new executive director who also is pulling together working groups, one of which will be a vulnerable road user working group that'll also be identifying, where are their needs and where are their strengths. So I think that is something that will be is being worked on right now and explored. And I know, Local Motion is on the board, so they're involved in that as well. So.
Representative Bush.
So I would also suggest you reaching out to everybody's regional planning commissions and ELCT. Because I don't know how many hundreds of miles of roads are municipal roads. Yeah, and it's probably, I dare say, probably more than state roads. So, thank you.
Representative Burke. We're gonna move on after this one to,
Regarding Safer to Schools program, it's part of the transportation alternatives, correct?
It's an eligible.
Eligible, right, funding, and I know it's sometimes be given specific percentages to certain activities, but is there a certain amount of money allocated for that? It's just that big pot of money, and just depends on when you do the priority, what projects rise to the top, right?
Sure. So at this time, we have not looked to fund the Safer School program through the transportation alternatives. We've been looking at other areas more on the highway safety funding side. So that is something that we are aware of is a potential source to be funding the program. But with some of the restructuring is, getting an understanding of what are the base needs that we need for that program, and then what resources or funding does it need to be successful.
There's no opportunity for a school that wants a Safer Schools program to apply through the transportation alternatives program.
Trying to think, I don't think safety and education is I don't think so. I'm looking at Mr. Byron, he's like, no.
It used to be its own separate program,
Yes,
and then it was put, and I know.
I can,
I'm sorry, I want to be fair, and I appreciate that you have a question, but I feel Pat's been waiting an awfully long time
Okay,
too, so
sorry.
you're not your fault,
You can
it's
find-
my fault for not
Fine.
being a little more.
I can find out more about that.
I want to make sure that our DMV witness has to add to the conversation. Amanda, thank you very much. And then we can come back to it. I know some people have some pretty hard deadlines at noon for the educate budget piece and the Act 73 presentation. And then we have the forecast at 1. And so please, let's see what you have to join to share with us.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Pat McManaman. I'm with the Vermont Department of Motor Vehicles. I spent several hours with you last city session, so I'm not going to go through my background. But I'll quickly say my background, 6 years as an EMT on Rescue 1 in Burlington, and then 30 years as a law enforcement officer, 14 with Burlington and the rest with DMV. And then now I supervise the education unit within enforcement and safety for DMV. So I'm going to talk a little bit about the education portion. And I know that's a concern, and it's a concern for us. And I applaud you. I'm a strong believer in education. When I was on the road, I would make a decision if I was going to issue a ticket or not based on will education work in this situation, or does it need to be a ticket? And if I thought education would work, that's what I went with. And I'll give you an example. I had a young driver, just got her license, got pulled over for speeding. I pulled her over on North Avenue. She was in tears. I told her, I expect a call. This is what time I go back in the office to go off duty. I expect a call from your father or your mother. If I don't get it, I will be at your door tomorrow morning to issue you a ticket. Dad was on the phone. I told Dad what happened. He thanked me and he said, we will deal with it. I used to teach patrol procedures at the police academy, which is part of it is tactics on motor vehicle stops. And I would talk about education versus tickets or both if that's necessary. I would run her record prior to going down to talk about it. And she never got a speeding ticket. She still lived in Burlington because I lived off North Avenue also. I would see her in the store. But she never got, now, did she ever get stopped again? I don't know, but not to the level of getting a ticket. Education does work. So that's where we need to go first. And part of my background was I was the first SRO at the high school at Burlington. So education I know does work. So what are we doing for education, specifically on the 4-foot and as well as e-bikes and that? The outreach, the section of the statute that you passed last year deals with signals and crosswalk, 1139C. Also the 4-foot rule, which is 1033, is where that is found. What have we done? Not a whole lot right now. Okay, I will be totally honest with you, not a whole lot. The only thing I can say is my unit, this falls under my unit because it is education. I have a 3-person unit, Fredericks 1, myself, and then Justin McLean, who oversees driver's ed. Justin and I were pulled out last year for the modernization program to do the testing for the new modernization program. We didn't come back into the unit until I believe it was October. So that's on me. If I'll take the blame for that. Okay. But since then, we're starting to work on it. And no, we haven't reached out to our partners yet because we're trying to get our unit where we want to go with this. Then we're going to start reaching out to partners. Our hope is that the Alliance will work with us because of the vulnerable users. I represent DMV on the Alliance board, and all 3 of us are going to be in the 3 different committees that the Alliance has formed for focus groups. And all 3 of us will be serving on the vulnerable users. So, in driver's education, we do cover it in our driver's manual and in our school bus driver's manual. Does it need updating? It most certainly does. We update it every year, and we will be updating it for this coming year to put in language here. Okay? But it is in our driver's manual. Most of our schools that we license, as well as the Agency of Education driver ed schools, use the AAA curriculum for their curriculum. There is a section in there that deals with vulnerable users, specifically bicyclists. And again, we can send out to our instructors, our licensed instructors, we need you to include this, and that's our plan. And that. So, but you need to include that it is now mandated for 4 feet. It's no longer recommended, and that. So, where else do they get the education as far as this when they're getting their license? Well, they get it in the driver's ed, but they not only get it out of the classroom portion, but they're also going to get it behind the wheel, behind the wheel of their observation. And hopefully, they're getting it when they're doing their 40 hours with their licensed driver, their extra 40 hours. So hopefully there's some checking on that. As far as law enforcement, so years ago when I was still on the road for DMV, I came up with a educational program that dealt with specialized motor vehicles, commercial vehicles, motorcycles, antiques, anything that farm vehicles, all the specialized vehicles. Because what happens with law enforcement is, I was a city of Burlington cop, okay? I never dealt with a farm vehicle. So my 20 years with the city of Burlington, I forgot a lot to do with farm vehicles. And that, so this gives officers a chance to brush up on things they may have forgotten. The electric bikes and bicycle laws was not included in that, but it is now being included. I'm in the project of developing that and put it into that training. The training is an 8-hour training typically, but what can happen is the department can choose specific blocks. So if, for instance, Washington County has reached out to me. They want a block on the bike and e-bikes. And that, the sheriff's department. So I told them that we will do that later on this winter or early spring. And that's in the works. Yes.
Could you just clarify? So you're speaking to educating commercial drivers or
No, this is law enforcement. This is
law enforcement?
training.
Okay, gotcha. Thank you.
They're interested in knowing what the laws are because the laws have changed. And e-bikes are coming around. And that's so, they want their deputies to know what the laws are. And that regarding those. Every bike regulation will be included in there, including the 4-foot. And then, so, as well as equipment, as well as what laws they have to follow, what motorists have to do. And that, so, but that is also going to be included in there. So, and that is offered to any law enforcement agency that wants it. All they have to do is contact me and we'll make arrangements to do it. And again, it's a set of blocks, different training. Diminished skills is in there. We no longer call it old age, it's diminished skills. I think I talked about that last year. Because simply I could be 17 years old and have diminished skills based on a medication I'm on or an illness. I mean,
Or just being a teenager.
or being a teenager.
Representative Pouch has a question.
Sure, I appreciate you catching us up on, what's been done, what will be done. The statute said that this should be done on or before April 1st, 2026. So we have time to do that. And I would suggest maybe we could get, before that or at some time in the session, sort of an update on where it is. Again, I'll say this education piece of support and including educating bikers and pedestrian folks, which could be at the schools or whatever. So that would be my suggestion, that we sort of follow up on, all right, where are we, for meeting that.
Did you have much more or are you all set?
That's basically it.
So I thank you very much and thank you both for coming in to represent the agency and the department. I guess I would sum up by saying that there's a lot of members of this committee that asked for this testimony today to express the concern that we did pass a law. There is an expectation of education. Your office has released a press release as recently as November 6th of 2025 about bike safety, and there's no mention of the 4-foot rule, which would have helped even in a small way. I think it's what the message from the House Transportation Committee is. I understand you have a million things to do. Add this to the list and please make sure there's progress and expect that we'll follow up on it again at some point in the committee, whether it be later this session or for those that return for next year. So I appreciate you coming in and being the face for your agency and your department. There is concern amongst the committee. There's still time to improve and we appreciate the efforts you made. We will look to revisit again. Thank you very much.